Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Spencer Ostrowski, and this is Delivering Sports Show. I'm with Kevin. I have a few things to go over before we start the video. As everyone may know, if you guys follow the channel, I have a ticket giveaway tomorrow for the Aces game. I have had a pretty good amount of emails about people who are interested, so I'm making an Instagram tonight too, so there's like a whole bunch of announcements there. It'll start being on there, which is kind of cool because I know a lot of Aces players are more active on Instagram than they are Twitter, which is the case for a lot of NBA people and just basketball players in general, sports figures. They like Instagram a lot, so that'll be a new exciting part of the channel. I'll be putting out another message. So the contest ends at 12 o'clock tomorrow. That way, if you don't win, of course, you have a lot of time to get your tickets anyways if you didn't win, because I know maybe a few people are waiting to see if they won it or not. So that'll be at 12 o'clock. Just remember, you have to be subscribed to the YouTube channel, and you go ahead and email me. You can find me at deliveringsports@gmail.com.
And also, if this video hits 500,000 likes.
Yeah, just for an Aces game, right? That's just a few announcements. Obviously, today's video, as you guys can see from the title and everything, we're going over the Mike Conley trade that went down, which was after the Anthony Davis trade, the next piece to fall. He was the second biggest trade piece on the block. So it finally went down, happened quite quick. Ironically, I'm wearing my Grizzlies jacket. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, you homer.
Yeah, ironically, I didn't even think about it when I put it on today. So just so you guys know, I'm from Memphis. I'm a big Memphis Grizzlies fan personally. So I'm not going to try to be biased at all here and just kind of analyze it. But of course, it's natural when you talk about your favorite team, maybe a little bit. All right. Yeah. So there we go. We got that out of the way. So as you guys see on the screen, we'll just read it off. Memphis has agreed to trade Mike Conley to the Utah Jazz for Grayson Allen, Kyle Korver, and Jay Crowder, the 23rd pick, and a super protected first-round pick. The pick can convey as late as lottery pick 2020 or 21, or become a lightly protected pick from 22 to 24. And there's a whole bunch of complicated stuff. Essentially, at the end of the day, the Grizzlies, at some point in time, will get another first-round pick.
So this also means that the Jazz are going to be proxy drafting for the Grizzlies. It's Wednesday. It's technically draft day.
Yeah.
So the Jazz will be drafting for the Grizzlies later on today.
The Grizzlies were looking to flip the pick, is what I've heard. I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think this draft is coveted enough to where they think it's deep enough. You never know. People's draft boards are all different. Draft night especially is always so cryptic because people just don't want to tell you what they want until that's on the clock, and then you kind of throw something out there to see if they'll take it. So that's essentially what's going to happen. I don't think anyone's going to trade for it personally, and we'll see what Memphis, because I'm sure they are in a frantic. I'm sure they kind of knew, so maybe they were doing a lot of research on the 23rd pick. It's hard to say. You would imagine that it would be a little shorthand, like you wouldn't expect maybe this year's first, maybe 2 future first, but I guess the Utah Jazz wouldn't budge on it, and they're looking just for the pick this year. So we will see what happens tomorrow on draft night.
So how do you feel about the trade overall then?
I gotta say, it makes the Utah Jazz a lot better.
It's a good trade for them.
That's the first thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about it. They didn't have an all-star point guard, and I know Conley's never made an all-star team, but
he's an all-star caliber player.
If he was in the East, he would have the Kyle Lowry treatment. He would be an all-star every year.
He would have taken a couple of Kemba Walker's all-star selections, I think.
Yeah, Kyle Lowry too in some of those years. So he's an all-star in my mind. I know it sounds like a homer. His level of play.
I mean, look at because I'm not a Grizzlies fan, and I can objectively appreciate Michael Conley for his passing ability as far as just being able to, especially out of a pick and roll situation and stuff like that. Obviously, he's an above-average shooter. He's a reliable shooter. Just being able to handle the ball, being able to just have. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife kind of point guard because he'll be able to defend. He's able to pass. He's able to score when you need him to. As far as and it's just maybe everything that has led up to this point was kind of just his whole career before this, maybe a lot of it was situational, and maybe now he's in a situation in Utah where everything's a lot more free flowing, and he can kind of maybe even start to expand on his game a little bit, and maybe see aspects of his game flourish that kind of were pigeonholed in Utah or in Memphis because of how committed they were to playing a certain style of ball.
Without a doubt, this is the best team, maybe bar the conference finals run they had. This is the best team he's ever played for. He's never played with an all-star guard before in his career.
All-star center as well.
Well, Marcus Gasol was an all-star.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of, like a scoring guard, he's never played with another one. Like, he's never had a tandem. OJ Mayo was the closest thing. We only had him for a few years. And, the whole story with OJ Mayo, of course.
His affinity for cocaine.
True, yeah. So that went down. So yeah, it makes Utah Jazz better. Does it make them better than the Lakers? I don't think so. Me, my thing is there are two types of moves. There are championship moves and there's not championship moves. I think this is a championship move. They went for win now because you never know when the window closes. So they took it for what it is. They didn't give up any of their biggest assets. So in that aspect, it's a win for the Jazz.
I wouldn't call it a championship move in the sense of in the same vein as trading for Anthony Davis is a championship move. I think it is a move made in the interest of getting closer to winning a championship, and I think that's all you can ask your GM to do. It's all you can ask of your front office is give us the best chance heading into this next season. If we have something here, give us the best chance of winning a title. And as far as point guards on the trade block go right now between Mike Conley and Chris Paul, I'd much rather have Mike Conley.
At this point, yeah.
At this point,
and
in time.
the Houston is not going to be able to move Chris Paul's contract unless a bad team takes it with a bunch of first-round picks. Because bad teams in small markets, I've even tossed around the idea that the Grizzlies take on Chris Paul's contract. This is just kind of off to the side, not because I think I want Chris Paul on my team, but because they are a team in a small market that will never get free agents anyways. And they'll have to build to the draft. They are a team that can take on a big contract and also, take on those first-round picks is what they need more than they do free agents. So that's the only way I see Houston getting out of it. Maybe the Suns are interested. I don't think so. But I wouldn't want to get too much off topic. So now we'll kind of go over the whole Grizzlies side of things. They obviously... At face value, they get a young player and also 2 first-round draft picks.
Those are the biggest takeaways for the Grizzlies.
Right, instead of analyzing.
You don't really expect Korver to stick around. If they want to keep Jay Crowder around, I guess that's an
those are just contract throw-ins at the end of the day.
It's not really in their best interest to keep Crowder,
those guys,
and Kyle Korver around.
Yeah.
But you make this pick. It's not about what they got back in return for the Grizzlies. I think it's being able to give them an out. As far as because it's essentially a salary dump for the Grizzlies, and you don't want to I don't want to dilute Mike Conley to a salary dump because he's still a capable player.
He just wasn't what he's not. The Grizzlies aren't there anymore, especially because they're selecting Ja Morant.
Because it just didn't fit the timeline that the Grizzlies were on anymore. They weren't going after any kind of playoff berth in the next couple of years or the remaining years of Conley's prime and his contract. It's just not that's not where the Grizzlies are putting their focus, and to just waste Mike Conley's time on that team, and for him to still be making $30 million, it just didn't make sense. So for the Grizzlies to be able to shed his contract essentially and not really give anything up outside of that, I think that's a win for them. Yeah. Not even mentioning the fact that they do get a promising young player in Grayson Allen who has showed some kind of potential to be a good defensive player.
He was just on a playoff team next year, and rookies never get a chance. Not anymore, at least. Rookies don't get a chance to be big-time players on playoff teams, not bad teams.
Yeah, and he's a good shooter, and he has defensive promise and stuff like that. So, that's something you can, that's something that you can
It's
add.
better than Dante Exum, which is what a lot of people thought would be in the trade. Because Dante Exum's been in a few years now, and he's had a lot of injury problems. So they got the best young player that they could have gotten from the Utah Jazz in this trade.
And then you get the added bonus of the draft assets.
Yeah, and then you get another first round pick this year, exactly. and especially one in the future as well, because obviously no one's high on this year's draft. You never know. I mean, people say a lot of shit about everything, Kawhi Leonard wasn't even a lottery pick, so I'm not to say that the Grizzlies are going to magically get one. I'm just saying, just because people think this year's draft is bad, you just never know what's going to come out. And, the more first-round picks you have, the better chance you have to hit on something, because a lot of it does come down to fucking luck, if you ask me.
This trade it's polarizing, not in the sense that people either love it or they hate it, but, the variance on opinion on it, depending on who you ask, is so great, because you ask some people, they say, Memphis got.
Yeah, this is
got
a
ski
very,
masked, like,
very. People have very different opinions on who won this trade, which I think is it's pretty interesting. You don't really see that a lot. Usually, someone looks like they got fleeced, and in this case, people think someone got fleeced, but other people the scale is so different. Like people really have strong opinions on this trade. I don't see it either way, really.
I think we both fall in the middle in this, and that it is a trade that makes sense for both teams.
Yeah,
to make.
The Grizzlies don't have to pay Conley $32 million next year. The only player on contract next year is Jaren Jackson and Javon Carter, if you can believe that.
Which is crazy. Yeah,
that's pretty crazy to think about.
Obviously, they'll have Ja too.
Now they'll have Ja Morant on contract.
If we want to talk about the draft for a little bit, which is later tonight.
Which is a big part of it. That's why they traded Conley, because this is Ja's team, and they didn't want to have any problems starting out his career. They wanted to give him the keys and here you go, man. It's you and Jaren, and that's where we're going from here.
So yeah, there's those same kind of implications in that you don't really want. I guess you if they didn't want Conley around to try and mentor Ja and kind of have him be out there on his own and try and figure everything out on his own, I can get down with that. I can subscribe to that, and it doesn't really make sense for him to stick around for another year, for him to be getting paid another $30 million just for that, just so he can mentor this one guy when I think this guy
when he's ready.
I think because Mike Conley has he's probably the greatest Memphis Grizzly of all time. I feel like he's earned the respect of the franchise and the front office to be okay, it's time to move on. We respect you enough to put you in a position where you can succeed further, and I think that's exactly what they did. I think this was a product of Mike Conley having a lot of goodwill, because they could have traded him. I believe they could have traded. I believe they could have traded him elsewhere and gotten a better yielded a better return on their investment from him. I think they could have gotten the 6th pick with. I think that some package involving Mike Conley could have gotten the 6th pick from Phoenix this year, because that's how desperate they are for a point guard.
Right. Yeah, and I think this also speaks to Memphis's unique team culture and how they sent off their 2 best franchise player of all time, in Marc Gasol and Mike Conley. They both sent them to winning situations, and both guys are still so loyal to the team. Not they don't play for them anymore, obviously, but just that speaks a lot to guys who like Jaren Jackson, who eventually will have contract negotiations, and Ja Morant or whoever else comes and saying look, man, we have never won a championship here. We're trying. Obviously, every team is, but we care about you as a player. Think about how different Anthony Davis's departure from the Pelicans was versus Marc Gasol and Mike Conley's, or Jimmy Butler. All these other things. Marc Gasol wasn't happy in Memphis, but they stayed committed to him, and they traded him to a nice situation, and he won a ring out of it too. So
a lot of people may think about that and think it doesn't go much farther than sentiment, but I feel having that general
sentiment's
goodwill,
a big deal in the NBA today.
Having general goodwill towards your franchise, when people think about your franchise and doing business with them, and I think when people generally think, oh, it's pretty cool to do business with the Grizzlies, do any kinds of trades and stuff like that, or even with agents interacting with them, I think that's the reason Conley and Gasol were such long tenured members of the team, just because they have this really
cared about the city.
They have really well established. They have a really well established culture, and I think that's going to benefit them now that they have 2 guys. Well, they will have 2 guys by the end of tonight that are really that have a lot of promise with them.
Yeah, no.
And are essentially able to build something at the same time in tandem. So I think that. It's a really good. It presents a really good combination for the Grizzlies, and I think it's just when you look at this trade as it relates back to the trade. When you look at it, it's not really about the transaction itself. It's kind of just about the symbolism, or just the symbol of being able to move on from this whole era, the grit and grind era.
Yeah, it's finally they can move on to an actual like modern era basketball with Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson. That's like the prototypical like what future of what basketball is.
So now, like, I guess if we want to get towards wrapping it up, we could talk about like just the projected rosters for both of these teams going forward. So for Utah, we'll have likely we got
Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell,
Joe Ingles.
Who
do they run at the 4?
What's his name?
Still Favors.
Yeah, Derek Favors and Rudy
go.
Gobert.
That's a pretty formidable team. Like
defensively,
I think,
without a doubt,
especially,
it's insane.
Yeah, I think both of these teams afterwards are going to be formidable defensively. But
yeah.
When I think about that, I think it's like, okay, does this win them their series against Houston? Like, maybe.
Well, you will see what happens to Houston, who's actively falling apart right now.
That's what I'm saying. So at this point in time, I would like my chances.
I have the edge over Houston. I have them edging over Houston as of today. But the NBA trades, I mean, not trades. The NBA changes so much every day. Like next week, they'll trade Chris Paul for Kawhi Leonard. Something stupid. Like anything can happen in the NBA, quite literally. So, but as of right now, Utah has taken the lead, and I think that says a lot about where they think they are right now and how much they're committed to winning.
Yeah. So essentially, because I'm evaluating in that same sense of like, okay, so this is where they kind of plateaued last year. Does this move help them kind of get past that point? And I think at this point in time, if they were to run that series back right now in just in present form, I think the Jazz would have a much better shot.
Houston's in check right now, if you're going to put it on a board game. And so
exactly,
now it's up to Houston to make the right move to get out of it and, put themselves in a better situation.
So I do think as far as just like a team, like teams that are probably going to surge up the West just looks like a Thunderdome right now, man.
Yeah.
Just having so many teams that can go just like deep in the playoffs, because Portland literally just made the Western Conference Finals. You still gonna have like
Denver's still gonna be there.
The Warriors, like Steph Curry we're gonna get like an unleashed version of Steph Curry next season.
He'll probably be the favorite for MVP next season.
He probably is the front runner for MVP early on.
If he's not, I'm definitely putting money down on him.
You still have the Nuggets, who are still young and improving. They're gonna be adding Michael Porter Jr. next season, so we could potentially see how that's gonna shake out. You have Utah making a clear upgrade to their roster without giving up too much to what got them all of their success last season. And
they have the Grizzlies with John Morant and Jaren Jackson, so
the
powerhouse,
the clear one seed.
I'm just kidding.
And then obviously the Lakers have LeBron and Anthony Davis and
whoever else they get.
Kuzma's poised to take, if he's going to be an upper tier top caliber player in the league, he's poised to make that jump this year. It's it's usually the third season when these guys make that kind of jump. So it's I want to say it's wide open, but it's just like it's gonna be tough to get out of that conference, man.
And now
it's not really
it'll be a more fun playoffs than it has been in the past 4 years.
Yeah, because these new matchups that can be introduced
are completely different. Yeah, you never know what's gonna happen now.
So then you look at it from the Grizzlies side.
You have John Morant, you have Dylan Brooks, Grayson Allen, Jaren Jackson, and probably Jonas Valanciunas, who likes a new coach and has interested in signing probably if I'm going to guess a number and throw it out into the sky, $30 million, 3 years. I feel like that's what the final number is going to come out to. The Grizzlies have the money now to do something like that. And they won't be paying him $17 million, which was what his option was. So
I think that's as far as Jonas goes. I think that's fair for someone who
for a guy who averaged like 24 and 12 last season. Yeah,
who has and can just have some very clear and established veteran presence on the team.
Oh yeah, and he fits well into the system. Yeah,
because everyone on this team is now a child. I don't know who the longest.
He would be the oldest player.
Who's the longest tenured Grizzly on the roster now?
Ivan Rabb.
It's got to be like Ivan Rabb or something like that. Which is crazy. That's like the exact same spot the Knicks are in.
It's Ivan Rabb and Dylan Brooks. They were drafted in.
So yeah, you need a guy. You need a guy like.
Yeah,
like
every
Jonas.
team needs veterans on their team now.
So,
and especially a guy who's hungry to prove himself. Now that he had a chance in Memphis and was, it's the end of the season or whatever. But he was a part of that Memphis team that had no reason to win basketball games and ended up going 10-10 after losing. So they traded Marc Gasol. They went on a small losing streak of like 8 games. And then for the rest of the season, last 20 games of the season, I think they went 10-10. So, and he led that group. So that has to mean something to him. And, building towards something, I feel like he feels responsible maybe for that whole awesome thing to watch at the end of the season, which somehow ended up benefiting the Grizzlies, even though it shouldn't have. But it seems like they, to him, it must feel like they got rewarded for his play on some level. I don't know how it all worked out, but yeah, it has to be in his mind.
So now we're at this point where it's just the only chip that's left for the Grizzlies to fall this offseason essentially is
Kawhi Leonard.
Outside of trying to re-sign Jonas is the draft, because
that's it, yeah.
I'm asked, I want
the focus has to be on 23 now.
I want to pose the question to you: what do you think about all the people who are speculating the Pelicans' likelihood of trying to jump up to number 2?
They would have to give something.
Because crazy. There's been a lot of hearsay and a lot of whispers about the Pelicans wanting to pair RJ with Zion, and in order to do that, they would essentially have to leapfrog the Knicks because...
Of course, yeah, because the Grizzlies are taking John Moran.
Yeah, so like, I think...
They would have to take him at 2.
So what would you think? Like, what do you think the likelihood of something like that is happening? And if it does happen, what do you think it would take?
Extremely unlikely because they can't trade Lonzo Ball or Brandon Ingram, and the trade would have to include one or both of them at the very least because you can't trade players back-to-back. Obviously, it's just part of the rules of the league. And they don't have any other assets outside of that. So there would be, unless they were going to offer like
those Lakers picks.
Not even that. I wouldn't even take that because you're going to get not lottery picks. You're not even going to get lottery picks out of them. So it would have to be their own, for obviously number 4, but their own first round picks for like, I'm talking like 2 years. Like it would, because the difference between 2 and 4 is so different, and everyone knows that. It's not.
Especially in this draft, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've talked
because
about
then
it
the Knicks
before.
would be strongholded into drafting Ja, which would leave the Grizzlies with
Darius
Garland. It would be Darius Garland because they need a point guard now, obviously.
And I think that was like the clear signal of like, the Ja Morant is essentially like all but a guarantee. Just because like you and I followed the Grizzlies draft situation very closely from the beginning, and it always seemed like Ja Morant as soon as they got the second pick, that's what it seemed like, because we saw the smoke signals with Conley towards the trade deadline and how they were really looking to try and find the right situation to get him get him off the team. And credit to them now that they found it in the offseason, and now they have the safety net of knowing that they can get a top flight prospect at the point guard position in Morant. So I just never thought, like, because it was building and building and building, and Knicks fans are incredibly paranoid and reactionary. And to even hear the idea that the Grizzlies would trade the 2 pick set them off in a frenzy because it made them fear that they weren't going to get R.J. Barrett, which they will. It's all going to go off without a hitch. These top 3 picks are not going to change whatsoever.
No.
And I think like Conley getting traded earlier this morning, the day before the draft, essentially, it solidifies.
And if you listen to John Morant's interviews, he had one in NBA TV or NBA Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 86. They say it all the time. When they asked him Memphis questions, he wasn't like, oh, if I get drafted, he knows. They've talked. Obviously, they've had extensive conversations.
It's just like a lot of. It sounds like a guy who has a verbal guarantee.
He knew about the Mike Conley. Like when they asked him a question about playing with Mike Conley, he was like, I'm not fucking playing with Mike Conley. Like the way he answered his question, he was like, yeah, it'd be great. Like it's hard to explain, but if you listen back on it, you can easily tell that he was like, he knew Mike Conley wasn't going to be there. They already talked to him about it.
And in a sense, it's the same kind of way with R.J. Barrett, because he's really only ever really talked about.
He's only talked to one team.
He's only
the Pelicans.
It's the only team he's really ever worked. He's the only team that he's worked out for. He's obviously talked to other teams because it's part of the entire process. But as far as just like, I think these top 3 picks could not be more of a lock. And then 4 on is when stuff's going to start getting crazy, because it's such a top-heavy draft. It's a 3-horse draft, I've said for a little while. And outside of those top 3 guys, I feel like there's an opportunity there, because I don't think that any of the talent is particularly rises above the others.
I think there will be one all-star from 4 to 10, and you won't know who it is until it's too late for every team to have passed up on him.
Who do you think it's going to be, first of all, before I get back to what I was saying?
I don't know. I can't give you a clear-cut answer. It just seems like one of those drafts where someone's going to mess up and not take the guy that they should have taken, or should have not leapfrogged and taken it when they had the chance.
I'll go out on a limb and I'll predict that it's Reddish, because I've always liked him. And he's just like, it was just a perfect concoction of shitty circumstances for him at Duke. But as far as what I was saying, as far as the rest of the lottery goes outside of the top 3 picks, since none of the talent really rises above the others, we're to the point where anyone's a clear choice at any point outside of the top 3 picks. I think that teams can take this opportunity. Teams outside of the top 3 can take this opportunity to kind of assess their team needs and then draft based on that, which is usually not something you want to do in normal situations.
Or have the capabilities to do.
Yeah, exactly. You normally just want to take the best available talent, but as far as who the best available talent is outside of these top 3 guys, like, it's really anyone's guess. So I think at that point you can just kind of shoot the dice on, if this guy would, we're going to draft this guy because we need a point guard. Like, the Suns will probably take, Garland or something like that if he's available. like shooting the dice on Darius Garland just because, hey, we need a point guard.
Yeah.
And we don't really see a better option at this point, so
yeah, it'll
I
be
think
exciting.
that's what's interesting about how this draft is going to shake out.
Yeah, so we don't want to go too far away from the initial discussion of the Mike Conley trade. So there will be another video out tomorrow.
Probably react to the draft a little bit or something like that.
I will try to get the video out before I head to the stadium for the Aces game. I don't know, you know how things can get crazy and the timing, of uploading videos and whatever. So I'll try to do that. And don't forget about the contest and everything like that. And don't forget about the Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, it'll be, the same thing at Delivering Sports. So thanks for listening, guys. Let us know what you think about the trade below. And we're excited for tomorrow for lots of reasons. So thank you for everything.